is going to be Do I Need a VPN? By myself, Tom Kreuzer. You can mute your audio and you can turn off your video if you want until the question and answer at the end of the presentation. That'll improve your performance because less needs to send and receive video there. If you do have a question, you can use the chat. I'll cover the chats after I get done with the presentation. The handout, as I mentioned here, is out on the PC Club website and the past meeting files. And I believe Jim will post it out in the chat also. You can download it from the chat. He'll be uploading it shortly. Agenda today, we'll cover some of the club stuff before we get to our main topic. Future meetings on Friday, the MaxSig is having a meeting, and that'll cover some of the new news on the different devices there. Video clips on sanitizing robots, computer history, and cassette inventor. There'll be an iPhone 12 Pro video they'll talk about, and some of the expected March 23rd Apple announcements, and then your questions. We also have a monthly question and answer session that I run, and that the next one will be April 6th, Tuesday, April 6th, the first Tuesday of the month. And anyone's welcome to join that. And then our next general meeting will be Wednesday, April 21st, and that'll be on financial packages or sites. And we'll talk about things like Quicken, GNU, which is a new one that I'm kind of moving to, Mint, bank apps, and other things. And one size doesn't fit all. So trying to find the right app or site to give you what you're really looking for. Officers, Jim is our president, Linda is our vice president, Paul is our membership secretary, Paula is our relatively new treasurer there in the last couple of months, Chuck is our secretary, Mike Griffin currently leads the MaxSig, Andrew is our communication coordinator, and my name is Tom. I'm a director at large. Members old and new, you can pay your dues to Paul. Paul will send out an email notice when your membership is expiring, and you can pay it through the mail, or you can use Venmo or PayPal, or I believe one or two other options there too. Also a reminder, if you're changing your email, make sure and notify us, because that's the way that we send out these notices, and that's the way we keep everybody in touch there. If you do have suggestions for topics, you can email any of us or talk to any of the board members. We'd love to have you volunteer to present on any hardware or software you're using at work or at home, or to write a short or long article for our eBytes monthly newsletter. Out on the website, we do post past meetings with slides and handouts and past recordings where we can get them. We also have a deal section, and our monthly newsletter is out there. And this link is also sent in all the emails. Okay, let's get to our main topic today, which is, do I need a VPN? And VPN stands for Virtual Private Network. And I'll be presenting. My name is Tom Kreuzer. If you connect using free public Wi-Fi to non-HTTPS sites, a VPN can help protect you. And we'll go into detail on these things. So if some of these acronyms and things don't make sense to you, we'll be talking about those. A business like 3M needs it. So 3M, if you're using 3M devices, you're using the 3M VPN. That's what's known as a private VPN. A person doing illegal activities needs a VPN. And we'll talk how that can hide your location and hide the data that you're moving around and things like that. A political dissident needs it. In some countries, sites are blocked, or blogs are blocked, or data is monitored. Certainly a VPN is very important there. If you are super paranoid, you think that you need it. So I've talked to a lot of people over the years who are fearful of everything there, and they don't trust anyone, and they want to hide as much as they can. And so if you are super paranoid, you think that you need it. Personally, I do not use a VPN or recommend it for most people, and we'll go over the pros and cons and some of the reasons that I don't use a VPN and stuff like that. This I mentioned here, most of the info and articles on VPN security that you see out on the web or on TV or things like that are filled with false claims about what they do. So they'll claim that they're doing all these things when the reality is they aren't really doing, they aren't as much a protection as what some people think they are. And some of these claims, or most of the information, is coming from the VPN vendors trying to promote their product and sell their product. So they're trying to get you fearful and things like that when you'll see the reality. I'm going to be giving you the straight talk here. Okay, let's start out with what is a VPN. Well, a VPN creates an encrypted tunnel between you and a remote VPN server operated by your VPN service. Your data is secure and hidden from prying eyes while inside the VPN tunnel. When your traffic exits the final VPN server, your computer appears to have a TCP IP address of the last VPN server. This ends up masking your original internet address, identity, and location. So it's this tunnel, and again, the tunnel, think of it as you're driving in a car and it's raining outside. While you're in the tunnel, you're protected and things are encrypted and stuff like that. Once you leave the tunnel, though, you're back to the normal internet. And so if your data wasn't originally encrypted, it's not originally encrypted once it leaves the tunnel. So that's why they call it a tunnel. It's a tunnel between two locations. And that tunnel, what's moving between that tunnel, between your PC and the internet servers that you're dealing with, is data. And there's lots of data being passed back and forth, but I'm going to try and simplify it a little bit by talking about some of the important things here, especially for VPNs. So one of the things for a VPN data that's being passed is the from, and that's the IP address of the location of the PC or the device that's trying to connect. An example there, that 88.145.22.65, it's a series of 4 or 5 numbers that identify a location anywhere in the world. Just like mail, whenever you do anything on the internet, there's, in addition to a from, there's a to. What are you trying to connect to? And that's the IP address of the internet server location. And that, again, is the 4 or 5 digit number there that you see. And then a third component is the actual data itself. So in our example, or what I'm going to be talking about, some examples next, we can think of it as you're logging into an internet site. And when you log in, it asks you for your account and your password. So when you hit enter, there's a from from identifying you, there's a to, what server you want to go to, and then there's the actual data itself, which is what you typed in, the account and the password. So let's take a look at some scenarios of data with a VPN and without a VPN, and with HTTPS and without HTTPS. And HTTPS is already built into an internet protocol when you use your browser in that. HTTPS stands for Hypertext Transport Protocol, and the S means that it's secure. So the first scenario we'll talk about is where we don't have a VPN and the server that we're connected to is not secure, so it is not using HTTPS. In which case, from my PC, when I enter in that account and password, it sends along my IP address of my PC here. It sends around the to, I'm trying to get to XYZ server. I'm trying to talk with XYZ server out here, and the data that I am sending is unencrypted, meaning that if I'm on a public Wi-Fi, anybody on that public Wi-Fi with some software there can see the account and the password that I'm doing. It also means that as this data gets sent to an ISP, which is your internet service provider, that's the Comcast or CenturyLink or whatever internet provider you have, can also see that data. They also see your address and they see what server you're going to. Once they get that information, they pass it along to the next step, which in this case is connecting to the XYZ server. When it connects to the XYZ server gets the data and knows that it came from my IP address. So the IP address of my PC way back here. So that's the situation where there is no VPN and it is not using HTTPS. Now let's look at where there's no VPN, but the server is using HTTPS. Similar situation, my PC, it ends up sending my IP address, sends the XYZ server that it wants to connect to, but now the data is encrypted. The data is encrypted, whereas back here where it's non-HTTPS, it's unencrypted. That goes to my internet service provider, and then the internet service provider sends it on encrypted to the XYZ server. So what that means is if I was on a public Wi-Fi, people could not see my account and password as long as the site I'm connected to is using HTTPS. Also, my internet service provider, because it's encrypted, can't tell the data that I'm doing. The internet service provider can tell that you're trying to connect to XYZ server, but it doesn't know what data you're passing. Okay, a third scenario here. Now you've purchased a VPN or you have a VPN installed on your PC and you're connecting to a non-HTTPS site. Again, we start out with my IP. The to, instead of this being to XYZ server, the to is actually going to the VPN server. And the data that's being sent is encrypted. So if I'm on a public network or my ISP cannot see the data that I have. Also, my ISP only knows that I'm going to a VPN server. They do not know that my alternate destination is XYZ server. So as it passes through the ISP, it's sent along to the VPN server. This VPN server has to do a few things here. First, it goes through and it changes from my IP to this VPN server IP. It then changes the to point to XYZ server, and in this case, it unencrypts the data, and that's what gets sent along to the XYZ server. XYZ server thinks that it's talking to a PC that has the address of this VPN server. It does not think that it's talking to a server back here or to my PC back here. Okay, this fourth scenario, we have VPN and HTTPS. Again, we start out with my IP going to a VPN server. The data is encrypted. My ISP can't see it. If I was on a public network, they couldn't see it. It's passed along to the VPN server. The VPN server changes the from address, changes the to address to the correct server, and the data is still encrypted, and it goes to the XYZ server. And XYZ server, again, thinks that the data came from this, or the request came from this VPN server and not from the device back here. So I know this is probably kind of confusing to people, but hopefully we'll talk a little bit more about some of these things in these next slides. Okay, what are some of the pros of using, why would you want to use a VPN? Well, like I mentioned in the definition, you get encryption between your devices and some point in the internet. And that includes things like a public Wi-Fi connection. If it's not encrypted, so that those scenarios that we talked about before, those points when it's not encrypted, potentially somebody could be sneaking or looking at your data. And if you have things like accounts and passwords, that's not a good thing. So if it's not encrypted, third parties like your internet service provider, government officials, cyber criminals might gain access to or use that data against you. Now, on that previous slide, I talked about the HTTPS and how that has its own encryption. So most sites and pages and functions are already encrypted with HTTPS and protected and hidden. Most banks, in fact, I don't know of any bank or financial site that doesn't use encryption there. And most of the apps that connect are using the encryption when they send and receive data. If you are using a public Wi-Fi connection, your browsing activity on a HTTPS website is not visible because it's encrypted. So if we look at this little example here, we talk about if it isn't HTTPS, so it doesn't have that secure layer, when you pass a user name and password, somebody looking at the data in between here can see the data. But when it is HTTPS, then that data is encrypted. So anyone seeing it wouldn't know that it's an account and a password, or wouldn't know how to decrypt it, and so they couldn't get at it. This HTTPS is what you see, like in this example from Chrome, where there's a little lock here. And you'll also see on the URL for a website, you'll see HTTPS in the website itself. So that's the way to tell. I'll bring up a browser here. So here I'm currently in a browser, and we're out at the PC Club website, and you can see up here the lock is on. If I click on the lock here, Chrome is telling me this connection is secured. Your information, for example, passwords or credit card numbers, is private when sent and received. So this is a secure site. If I go out to Fidelity, there's the lock. It's out on Fidelity. Almost every website that's out there is currently using HTTPS and is secure. In fact, for this demo, I was trying to find a website that I used that did not use HTTPS. And the only one I found out of like 200 or 300 that I have is this eforumsdemocracy.org. And you'll see what it shows up here. So Chrome is telling me this is not secure. Your connection to this site is not secure. You should not enter sensitive information like passwords and credit cards on this site. But I can still use this site, but just be aware that somebody else could be seeing everything that I do on this site. So let's go back to our presentation. Okay, so that's HTTPS and the encryption there. Okay, another pro, it's used by many companies to protect employees from exposing company data outside the company internet. This was the main use when VPNs were first created in 1996. So their very first use was by companies trying to protect their data. And the way that they did it is they created this thing called a VPN to create these tunnels. The tunnels, well, let's talk here. The 3M VPN is between 3M devices, so the laptop, smartphones that employees use, and the 3M internal servers. 3M data is never visible to snooping eyes, even when a device is at home or on a public Wi-Fi. 3M employees away from the office have access to everything they have when they are in the office, and 3M is protected and secure. This is a caveat I mentioned. 3M tracks what sites you access. You are not hidden using 3M VPN. So some people think, well, I'm using a VPN, so 3M doesn't know what sites I'm going out to or what activity I'm doing. False, because it's a 3M private VPN. 3M controls the servers, 3M controls the logging. It knows every site and every URL that you go out to, and so it has access to that information. And this is what's called a private VPN, which is different than what if you go and buy it for yourself. You're buying a VPN which provides that tunnel between you and a VPN server. Well, in 3M's case, that VPN server is inside of 3M's network. So it's a tunnel. Think of it as a tunnel. It's a long tunnel that protects 3M from wherever you are in the world getting into the 3M network. Now, ideally, if we wanted to be totally safe, if everybody wanted to be totally safe, every connection that we had would have their own VPN. So if you were talking to your bank would have its own VPN, and you'd connect from your device to the bank, and you'd have a tunnel there that nobody could see anything. But the way that, since we don't have that, people buy this, which gives them a tunnel part of the way, which is, again, only partial protection. It isn't total protection. Okay, what are some other pros? Internet services don't see your true IP address. So in those examples, when I talked about VPNs, I talked about how you started out, your device had its IP address, but as it exited the VPN, your address was changed to the server of the last VPN you went through. So that can be an advantage. Some VPNs let you pick your desired location to make it look like you're in a different country or an entirely different location. Many apps or services, though, don't rely on IP location and instead use your device's location services, which is not changed by a VPN. So people were, some of the streaming services said you could only operate in the United States. And so if you were overseas and wanted to watch Netflix, people were using a VPN, the server that was located in the United States, to make it look like they were in the United States when in fact they were over in Europe. So that's what people attempted to do before, and now some of the companies have found ways to monitor that and to shut down some of that capability. As I mentioned before, VPNs are used by hackers and for a number of illegal activities because you can hide identity and location. Also used by most peer-to-peer, P2P file sharing. If you've heard of things like BitTorrent and things like that, where people are sharing copyrighted movies, music, code, and others, they don't want the FBI or somebody to trace it back to their PC, so they'll use VPN to hide location that way. Another thing that you can do is in some cases you can access blocked websites, especially in countries that block some services. So if you wanted to use Facebook in China, China blocks Facebook. So you'd have to use a VPN to make it look like they wouldn't be able to see what server you're connected to, and they wouldn't be able to see what site you're going to. So a VPN can help there. Also, some internet service providers limit customer bandwidth during peak hours or when they engage in certain activities, like that BitTorrenting, file sharing and that, streaming and gaming. They may say, oh, gee, we're going to limit or slow down their connection there. With a VPN, your ISP does not know what you're doing because it's all encrypted. They know the amount of data that you're using, but they don't know ultimately where it's going, and they don't know what the data itself is. Another use that some people do is they set up their own home VPN. And that's for if you were away from the office, or let's say you were over in Europe and you wanted to get at files and things like that on your home network, and you wanted to protect it. Setting up your own home VPN is a way of doing that for privacy and protection. Another pro is most of the operating systems and devices, smartphones, tablets, and that, have VPN support already built into the operating system. So this is not a huge chunk of code. It's just a matter of turning it on and pointing it to your VPN service provider servers. So it's built into the operating system to make it work good there. Okay, what are some of the cons? Cost. You usually have to pay a monthly fee there. There are some free sites out there, but be careful of any free site because they are usually logging what you do and sell your information. So again, not recommended to use free sites, okay, another con, it slows down your internet connection with extra server jumps that increase latency and slower speeds. So it will slow down. You will not get as fast with a VPN as without a VPN. More data is being sent and received because of the encryption layers that have to be added to the data and that being passed, and the addresses of the servers and things like that. It'll slow down your CPU because on your PC or on your smartphone, it's going to have to do encryption and decryption, which also means that it's using RAM memory on your device. Some internet sites and services will not work with a VPN. Most legal TV streaming services require valid location info and will block access from known VPN services. So if you subscribe to, let's say, a NordVPN, Netflix and others know that Nord is a VPN service, and frequently they will block those so that you cannot use VPN when you're accessing Netflix and some other services. Also a reminder, what works today may not work tomorrow. So as new VPN services come up and things like that, the companies just add in to flag and to prevent these future VPN services to actually work there. If you use smart devices in your home, you're likely to have problems. You may have to turn it off or install it on your router to get things to work. An example is Chromecast will not work. Because if you install a VPN on your PC and then attempt to connect to Chromecast, Chromecast only allows devices within the same subnet or a location within your home network. Well, the VPN is it's not connecting directly to that Chromecast device. It first has to go out to a VPN server and then come back in and try and connect. And that doesn't work. Chromecast won't allow that. So a lot of smart home things, you're going to have a problem if you attempt to do things with a VPN there. Okay, some other cons. Even with a VPN, things like cookies allow companies to track your internet usage even after you've left their site. So some people go, well, I don't like a company tracking me on that. Well, even if you use a VPN, in most cases you are being tracked, because if you use a Google account or you go out to Amazon, Amazon is tracking you because you logged in. You have an account. These are the items that you looked at. These are the things that you bought. This is how many times you've logged on. They know all that information. So using a VPN doesn't stop Facebook, doesn't stop eBay, doesn't stop Amazon, doesn't stop Google, doesn't stop all these things from kind of tracking you. I mentioned here cyber snooping is still possible with a VPN. A VPN makes it harder, but it doesn't make it impossible. And I won't go into details there, otherwise I'd have to shoot you. Your VPN service does know what you're doing online. So some people think, well, nobody's going to know. My ISP isn't going to know what I'm doing, and nobody knows. Well, your VPN service does know what you're doing online. Some also create logs that they sell to third parties, and some don't. This is especially true of free VPNs. But I mentioned before the streaming of illegal movies. So you're watching streaming TV and you're not paying anything for it. A number of VPN sites have been, the FBI has shut down, gotten the logs, and then traced back the people that were using it. So there are some ways to trace back there. Okay, I choose not to use a VPN. And a couple of different main reasons there. I make sure my secure data and sites are using HTTPS and are protected from prying eyes. So I don't want somebody to get my account and password. So I make sure that the sites that I use and what I do is protected there. So for those sites and that, I don't need it. Or if I'm using a public Wi-Fi, I don't need that encryption because the sites that I'm going to already have that encryption. A VPN could give you some privacy for sites where you do not log in or use an account, but a VPN does nothing, like I was talking about, to prevent sites like Facebook, Google, YouTube, Netflix, and thousands of others from tracking what you click on and what ads you see. So if you think you're going to hide yourself totally, no, you're not hiding yourself. For me, there just is not enough benefit for me to use a VPN. Okay, I don't use a VPN, but there's additional things that you can do for privacy, whether you use a VPN or don't use a VPN. So one of the things you can do is, and this came in about 3, 4, well, maybe 5 years ago in Google Chrome, you have the ability to do what's called new Incognito Window, or if you're using the Microsoft Edge browser, it's called new Private Window. It's an option to hide your location and cookies. And the way to do that is you can go up to the settings in your browser and open a new window that'll hide your identity. So let's just take a quick look there. I'm going to open up the Chrome browser here. So within Chrome, if I go up to the top right-hand corner to the vertical dots here, if I click on that, you'll see there's an option called New Incognito Window. When I open that, you'll see I have all my bookmarks and stuff like that, but there's a little guy up here that says I'm now in incognito mode. And incognito mode means that It won't be saving your browser history or cookies or passing cookies and information entered into forums. And you can block third-party cookies. So you can use this if I wanted to go, if I wanted to use Incognito to go out to Fidelity or whatever, I can go to all my sites here. It's just that the cookies and the other tracking is not going to take place there. So that's what you get with Incognito, and you can have regular windows and Incognito windows open, or I can exit this and I can go back to my regular Chrome browser here. Also, I'll show in here I've installed a plugin here for Adblock Plus to reduce the number of ads that I see. And we'll talk about that next. And so this is an ad blocker. So let's go back here. So you can go Incognito there. Let's see here. Okay, I mentioned I use the free plugin Adblock Plus to help reduce the number of pop-ups and ads that I see. So again, something for privacy and stuff like that. You can minimize the number of ads. You can use additional things. I use additional things like encrypted files. So when I store really confidential information up on the cloud or send it through emails or things like that, I encrypt the files. You can use secure software, apps, and sites. All depends on what you need. Many of the well, not many, but some of the packages do already let you protect or encrypt files. So if you're using Microsoft Office, you can password protect a file, which essentially is encrypting the file there. And so you can encrypt it. If you're using Quicken, it'll let you. If you're using TurboTax, that'll let you. 7-Zip, this is a zip utility. I use that. You can add passwords to zip files. So somebody who gets the zip file, or if you attempt to look at it, you need to know the password, otherwise it's useless to you. And there's others out there. Another option that you can do is you can encrypt your entire hard drive by turning on BitLocker. BitLocker comes with certain versions of Windows 10, the Pro version and the Enterprise, and it's very useful for laptops because what companies like 3M and a lot of people want to protect themselves if their laptop is stolen or they forget it in an airport or something like that. If it's not encrypted, somebody can take the hard drive out of that laptop and go through all the directories and the files and see all the data out there. If you encrypt it, then a person can't look at all those files out there. So encryption of a hard drive, again, something different than a VPN, but gives you a level of protection there. Some other things, you can switch to a private browser, and the examples I give are probably the top two, Brave and Thor, which hides your traffic by rerouting it through a series of nodes to make it hard to track users. So you can switch to one of these. I rarely use one of these. If you're going to go out to the dark web, though, you do have to use a package like Thor, but Chrome isn't going to work on the dark web. Another thing that you can do is you can switch to a private email service like Proton Mail or Tutanana, which can do end-to-end email encryption, and it doesn't monitor your mail and does not sell info to third parties. Google will monitor your mail, and mail by default is not encrypted, and don't be passing passwords or stuff like that in there. You can switch to a private search engine like DuckDuckGo or StartPage. Again, they don't track or sell your information to third parties. Some additional links and information. This is a definition. Fingerprinting, you may not have heard of fingerprinting, but fingerprinting is when websites collect unique information identifying visitors' browsers to find out whether people have visited before, to create profiles of behavior and make ads follow visitors around the internet. It's hidden. You cannot control. It's not controlled by users. You can't turn it on or off. It's used in at least a third of the 500 most visited sites like CNN, the IRS uses it, Washington Post, Best Buy, Costco, New York Times, and hundreds of others. There's currently no protection to prevent it. So again, going back where some of these VPNs claim they're doing stuff, they can't prevent this. If you do want to investigate or purchase a VPN and try it out, this is a link to CNET's recommendations for the best VPN services. And then here's a link to PC Magazine, what they recommend. And this, best free VPNs, and here's why they don't actually exist. Mind your privacy and avoid the malware, ad tracking, and slow connections that come with free VPNs. So this is an article that goes into a little detail there. Okay, that concludes the presentation. We'll cover the chat, and if you do have a question, you can unmute your audio and video, and I will stop sharing here. Okay, and let me go here. We'll bring up our chat here. And so you can either ask a verbal question and, okay. So Mitch mentions by using private Incognito Window, you can access some web pages that would not otherwise be accessible. Sites that allow only 3 articles per month. So yes, so if you're going out to the Star Tribune site or Pioneer Press, and a lot of them will put cookies out there to keep track of how many times you've been out there or how many articles. They'll going incognito may let you in, although some of these services are starting to get more sophisticated, and some of these tricks don't work there. But certainly worth a try. Incognito may help there. And then Mitch that mentions for private instant messages across platforms, I like the Signal app. So there are a number of apps or services for doing private messages, and usually when they talk about private messages, they mean encryption and that. Across these multiple platforms there. Okay, anyone with a other question there? And you can turn on your video or and mic there, and if that. Just is anyone currently using a VPN and want to give their perspective there? Got lots of quiet people out here. Okay, Bob asks here, are you going to make your slides available? The slides are currently available out on in the past meetings area, the PC Club website, and the video. So I've been recording the screen here and the audio there. That'll be posted out there probably later today also. So if you do want to revisit it or see any of the past meetings that we've had, they're all out there, and You can take a look at the handout, at the slides in a PDF file, and the video where available there. Okay, and then Paula mentions, I hate it when I look for a flight and then the ads follow me for a while. I should perhaps use Incognito or DuckDuckGo. It depends on how those ads are. So an ad blocker is a nice tool there, but it's not going to block all ads. As an example, I use Facebook. Well, Facebook, an ad blocker is not going to block anything in Facebook. Facebook is showing you ads out there, and if you blocked the ads in Facebook, you'd be blocking all content in Facebook. So if you want to use Facebook, you're going to have the ads. And some people will go, well, I don't like the fact that some of the ads are pertaining to things that I've searched for in the past or articles that I've looked at and things like that. Well, that's unfortunately your only choice is not to use a package like Facebook because you either use it or you don't use it.
I don't mind general ads, but then I get random, like ads that say, oh, book Maui for, $400, because it knows I typed Maui in, they're real targeted, I guess. That's what I mind so much is it freaks me out to know that they knew I, might be going was looking for certain dates to Maui.
Yeah, and that's what kind of goes back to the cookies and the tracking. If you have an account and stuff like that is passed, one thing I'll show here, let me share my screen again here. Let me get here and desktop and let's minimize. So one of the things that we were talking about before is when I go to Fidelity here. So Fidelity is secure, but you'll notice when I clicked on the lock here, it's telling me a lot of information here. So it's saying this connection is secure. If you want to learn more about HTTPS, you can click on it. So this will tell you how HTTPS works and some of the things like that. But also what you have here is it's telling you what certificate it's using. So when it connected to this server, servers have to apply for certificates. Where did it get its certificate? Who issued this certificate? How good is it issued for? And for what domain or URL is it valid for? So you have things like that on what some of this stuff is. Let's go back here. The other thing that you are kind of talking about is this is interesting here. It's cookies, 20 in use. This means that when I went to this website queried my computer and looked up information from 20 different cookies. These 20 different cookies that it looked up, these are the websites that originally had gotten it, whether it's from a Google search, whether it's another partner of theirs, things like that. You can delete, you can remove these cookies, and you can see what the value is in the cookies. And some of it, there's all kinds of information there, and you can even block it from this site in the future. So you have a lot of control here that people don't know about or use there. And there's different settings that you can do for the site also too there. If I click on this is where for this particular site, I can turn on or off cameras, microphones, notifications, just for this site, support.google.com. So you have a lot of control. It's just that by default, you've given up everything to the site that you're going out to. And so this site that you went out to thought, gee, if Paul has been searching for a vacation, we're going to try and sell her a vacation there. Or maybe she's going on vacation. Maybe we should mention that she should buy some new luggage, or she should do this. So there's all of these things that can be done.
Should a person delete their cookies on a regular basis, or doesn't that help?
You can do that. The trouble is, if I go to a lot of websites and I do a lot of things. If I delete all of my cookies, cookies are not all bad. Cookies save you having to enter some information in, to save some preferences. What's the last page that you were on, things like that. You start deleting all of that, and you're going to have to, when you go out to the website, you're going to be starting from ground zero, as if you were a brand new user. So the incognito is handy there, because that makes it look like you are a brand new user. No cookies, none of this stuff. So you can try that if that works for you. Just instead of using the regular browser, go through the incognito browser there for those sites. You don't have to use it on all of them, but if you're seeing some of these pop-ups and an ad blocker doesn't block it, or things like that, one of these sites may help there.
Thank you, Tom.
You're welcome. Okay, just to clarify, let's see, John said, just to clarify, I'm in a public Wi-Fi spot and used an HTTPS website. My data is private. Yes. So John was asking if he was using at a coffee shop and a public Wi-Fi where it's not encrypted, and frequently a lot of public Wi-Fi spots are non-encrypted. If you're connecting to a server, that server is encrypting everything, or the connection between you and the server, everything is encrypted. So you are protected there. The only place where you're not connected, or the only thing that could be seen, is if you attempted to go to sites that were not HTTPS. But years ago, if we go back 10 years ago or 15 years ago, most of the servers were not HTTPS servers, because that used additional power, CPU, was more costly to do it. So only a few of the sites were the secure servers. Nowadays, almost every site. As I mentioned, I had trouble finding a site that I use which was not secure. But that's why you should keep a little eye up in that corner there. So if you do go to a site and it's not secure and you're on a public Wi-Fi, don't send anything. Okay. Jim, did you have a question there?
No, I didn't, but you're 2 hours different from us now after the time change this weekend. So
yeah, well, we can't fix that though.
No, that's fine, Tom. No problem.
Okay,
I'll go incognito
here. Don't plan to use VPN. Thanks for the tips. Incognito and accessing articles. Mitch says, I've occasionally used VPN Gate, a free VPN hosted by a Japanese university, mostly for my own testing. And then Mitch also mentions, I once served my wife some Oreos cookies while she was browsing HuffPost. Within a minute or so, she received an ad for Oreo cookies. There's certainly strange things that can happen. Some people say, well, the camera's watching them all the time. That usually isn't the case. It usually is a case of somewhere in an email or somewhere in a Google search or somewhere somebody mentioned it, or it could just be trending there. Any other questions or comments there?
I'll comment live, though. Remember, though, when you say ask Google or Siri or Alexa, you're doing a search. So it is listening to you, because that's intentional. So that's the same as typing it into your search bar. You're doing a search, so that's where it will listen to you because you're intentionally doing that.
Yeah, Jim's correct there. Now, the other thing that I've had people ask is on their Alexa, they think that Alexa is listening all the time. Well, your Alexa is listening all the time, but the only time the data gets sent up to the server is when you give the code word Alexa and it turns on, and then you give it the command. That information is sent up to the server. Every other piece of information that I talk about where I don't say the code word there is not sent to the server. And so it's a case there. And I always like to do this. Alexa, who's the smartest person in the world?
Tom Kreuzer is the smartest person in the world. He has an IQ of 98,765 and is good looking too.
So see, you can't argue with artificial intelligence and what it knows and stuff like that out there. So, but I use that to tell people you can't always believe things that you find on the internet. Unfortunately, I'm not the smartest person in the world. If you want to have fun with your friends and that, contact me after. I can explain how you can create your own routine. So this is what's a routine that I created, where whenever it hears the keywords, who's the smartest person in the world, it gives a response back. And so you can have it say anything you want. You can have it do anything you want, things like that. So I just created a little program that does that. Kind of fun to do. Let's see. Ed asks, can Incognito Mode be set to the default mode of the browser? I believe it can be. So if you have an icon on your desktop, just Google that, and it'll show you how to open up in the Incognito there. Again, if you want to use it all the time, you're going to find that cookies are not bad. So as I mentioned to people, if you go through and delete all your cookies, then you'll start finding all these things that you had set up before are not working, and you have to reset them up. And if you reset them up and you are in incognito mode, as soon as you exit the browser, everything is lost. So next time you have to set it up again, and the next time you set it up. And so some of the sites and that, you definitely want it to maintain the cookies and the history and things like that there. But other sites that you do want to block or not have it trace you, that's where the incognito is very handy there. Okay, Bob asks, are those of you that are now using the new password app, forget the name, are you still happy with it? So people can respond there. Bitwarden is the one that I've recommended as a replacement for LastPass. If somebody has a comment, I am still using it and converted all my stuff from LastPass. I exported it out of LastPass and then imported it into Bitwarden, and everything's working great for me anyway. Okay, any other comments or questions there?
Thank you, Tom. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of those.
Okay, well, have a happy St. Patrick's Day. Drink some green beer and socially distance. So we need to keep the socially distance and wear 1 or 2 or 3 masks. I don't know what we're up to today, but the more the merrier there. And MaxSig is this Friday. Got the Q&A next month, and we'll be talking about financial a month from now. Okay? Otherwise,
Thanks.
we'll see everybody. Bye.